Good morning, everyone, and welcome aboard the Starship to another episode of Planet New Jersey. I am your host for the day, Randy Stevens, and with me is the guru of comms, Vince Civitillo. Vince, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
And helping us today thrive in any climate. Today are our guests, David and Adam from EisnerAmper. EisnerAmper, I think I said that right. And David and Adam, I took Thrive from Any Climate directly from your website, so points for me. They are longtime BIA supporters for over 20 years, is what I've seen this morning, checking into the account. And so we'd like to start off with a big shout out and thank you to our official sponsor for today, New Jersey Business and Industry Association's world-class business magazine, New Jersey Business Today, and of course, EisnerAmper. David and Adam, please say hi to our guests.
Hello, everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you guys both for being here. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to jump right in today. We've got a lot of different things to cover. But the first thing I want to highlight, and David, you and I were touching about this in pre-production. I found out prior to today's show that my co-host Vinnie over here is extremely interested in forensic accounting. So
I
I
love
just
it.
want to say, I want to set one ground rule that you guys are not allowed to recruit him during today's show. But other than that, this is going to be a lot of fun. And I want to jump off and jump right into Fraud Week, I think is what's coming up here in November. Can you guys tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So there's something that's coming up. It's called International Fraud Awareness Week. It's just a week in which organizations that are fraud focused will use that time in order to highlight and put some emphasis on the world of fraud and the prevention of fraud. You'll see a lot, and it's not just EisnerAmper, it's the accounting industry, it's all the people that are fraud adjacent, internal audit firms or
Thank you.
people and attorneys. And it's just a time for everyone to kind of raise up the elevation of the standing of what fraud is and what fraud can do to businesses.
And to my understanding, I think one of you are going to be a guest in Fraud and Focus webinar, something that's coming up here in a few weeks. What can we expect of that? Is this the first time this has been hosted? Any history there you guys are willing to share?
Yeah, sure. So what that is that's coming up on the 18th of November. And that's a panel. It's a free panel. And what we're going to have we have individuals, a cross section of 5 different experts, one of them being, you know, in experts is in, I'll put quotes around it for myself. I'll let other people, talk about themselves, but we're going to be talking about the impact of AI, fraud in government-funded programs, fraud risk detection, and also current investigative techniques, which then rolls it all the way back around to AI again.
Nice. Nice. And Adam, maybe I got a question for you. So, I mean, in today's digital age, is fraud more prevalent now than historically? What has there been a transition and an uptick in that, or what does that look like?
I don't know that I would say it's more prevalent. I think it's just the manner or methods with which it's arising just
Okay.
continues to change and adapt. We're seeing fraudsters just get more creative and find new ways to try to hide or circumvent their manner of getting away with things. So I can't speak to how things were before my time, but they're just keeping up with the technology and the trends and trying to stay ahead so that they don't get caught.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, and if I could just real quickly, I mean, just so that you know, I mean, there's a documented fraud from 300 BC, in which a ship captain tried to defraud whatever passed for insurance there, in which they offloaded the goods and then sent the ship out and then wanted to sink the ship. So insurance fraud's been going on for a long time. So it's a byproduct of human civilization.
Huh. That makes me feel awful for ourselves, It's just inherent to our being. Do you find that most fraud comes from outside the organization or inside the organization?
You want to take this one, David?
Sure, it's both. I think smaller stuff comes from the outside, but the real big items come from internally. If
Wow,
that
you would
makes
think that would
sense.
be the opposite?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's hard to get in, but
Yeah.
if you're in, you have the keys to the kingdom.
Uh,
And so at least, I mean, that's my opinion. Adam,
No,
agree
I
with it?
think in the forensic accounting world, I see more internal types of fraud. I can't speak to other kinds of frauds in other industries. I'm sure you think about people who hack into organizations and steal their data. Certainly that's an external type of fraud, but that's not the kind of work that we get into. But I think a lot of the financial and accounting crimes that we see are internally generated.
I like it. I like it. And so here, let's do this. So, and Adam, that was a great segue. So you're talking about forensic accounting, and we mentioned my newfound interest, or from Vinnie learning that he has an interest in there. Tell us, what does it take to be a good forensic accountant today, and a little bit more about EisnerAmper, if you guys don't mind.
Sure. Well, let me speak about what makes for a good forensic accountant. And David will certainly have a different answer to this because I got into forensic accounting with a data background. I have an experience with data analytics, data engineering, and things of that sort. So when I think about what makes for a good forensic accountant, it's someone with the business acumen and the accounting knowledge, which certainly is a foundational concept that we all have to have. But in the world that I'm in and what I do with data analytics, it's taking that data capability. And data analytics is everything from the data engineering side, things that we do to bring in the data from a client or from a data source. How do we synthesize and set up that data for analysis? And then when we get that data readied for an analysis, how do we not only analyze that data, but tell a story about what's going on inside that data? What's interesting about what I do is when I work with clients or counsel, they'll throw data at me without any instruction. It's just, here is a set of bank activity, accounting records. We don't know what's in it, and we don't even know how to go about navigating this kind of data. So what I do without instruction is go in and synthesize, analyze, and tell that story of the data. So from my standpoint, to answer that question, what makes for a good forensic accountant, it's those core competencies in finance and accounting, but also in this technology-driven world, it's the sophistication and ability to do data analytics, data analysis in a way that allows you to do things more efficiently and tell a story of that data.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And I mean, and so when you hear about that and you think about numbers, and this is from someone outside the realm of forensic accounting, uh, obviously you can't avoid, and Dave and I had a conversation about this prior about AI and its use. Like, is that something you guys are embracing as we're moving forward here and with this new technology?
Yeah, and I know David has an opinion on this as well. We can't escape conversations today like this one without talking about AI even for a little bit. But I will
It's
say
everywhere.
that we are leaning into AI, but we can never rely on AI. A lot of what we do, whether we're writing an expert report, we're testifying, we can't say that our conclusions were made because of an AI system. We can't replicate that. We can't rely on that. But what we can do is lean into AI in the sense of augmenting our work. And I know when I started looking at AI, even before the popular models that are out there today, it was how do we use AI to make our work more efficient? How do we use AI to kind of start the process that we can then take and finish? So there's a couple of AI use cases that are out there for forensic accountants, but you'll never see, at least in my opinion, AI used to actually perform the work. And again, when I talk about data analytics, whether it's cleaning up the data, doing the analysis, or creating some sort of presentation or visualization, we just can't really rely on AI to do that, but we can lean into it to do it more efficiently.
Are you not able to rely on the AI because of like the quality of the data?
More so about the output. And by that, I mean, if
Yeah.
it has a conclusion that it draws, there is an anomaly in the data, or the data shows that there's this type of trend, therefore you can say X conclusion. We just can't do that. But I'll give you an example of where we can use it. We see a large volume of data in this data-driven world that we're in. So if we get 10,000 bank transactions or 100,000, and I've worked on cases where we're in excess of millions of records, historically, either we have to sample and look at only a couple, or we have to methodically go through all those lines. AI can at least take a first pass and go through as much of that data as it can before I go in and give a secondary review. So that's a way that we could potentially use it, but still at the end of the day, we have to be the ones that are doing the analysis and drawing the conclusions.
I like it.
So what kind of mistakes would you say people generally make when they're trying to analyze data? Like especially if we're not going to rely on AI, let's say. Or maybe if we are, maybe that is one of them.
The mistakes you asked, what kind
Yeah.
of mistakes? David, you want to comment on this? I mean, I have an opinion too.
I mean, I think that exactly what Adam was trying to talk about there, which is over reliance. is the biggest problem. Another example of how I use AI is we will sometimes have an email review, or we'll have hundreds of thousands of emails and electronic documents, and as we're manually reviewing these, to Adam's point, you can't look at all of them. But when we find, using some keywords, we'll find what may be what we call a hot doc, or something that's very relevant to the allegations that we're looking at. The email tool that we use will then, so today I marked 20 emails that are very important. Overnight, the AI will go through the remainder of the data set that hasn't been reviewed. And in the morning when I log on, it will give me the documents that most accurately match the tone. It's not just the keywords, but like the tone, the message, all those things. And it'll pull those up to the top of the queue. So now I'm more efficient in finding what's going on, because AI kind of went through the whole data set and pushed something to me very quickly that I wouldn't have been able to do prior, because some of these emails don't have any of the keywords or the
Wow.
people that I was looking at, but AI was able to think about it. Now, in those instances, AI is not creating the documents. I'm still looking at them and forming a conclusion on them, but I'm much more efficient in that manner.
And I want to back up a little bit, guys, if it's okay with you. So, what type of organizations or industries, maybe, right? Rather, does EisnerAmper work with, or where these skill sets, are needed and necessary?
Yeah, I mean, we help companies from Fortune 500 to all the way down to individuals. Depending on what the need is. Fraud affects everyone. We talked
Yeah.
about how it goes throughout time, but it also affects huge companies. It impacts small companies and even individuals. I'm doing two actually right now. For a professional athlete, and then one for a former employee of the firm. And in those instances, there are allegations of someone stealing from them.
I've actually read things, like I remember, I'm not going to call out company names, but I remember there was somebody who was accused of signing like big checks, basically for themselves, because let's say like the review threshold was something like $10,000. So if they wrote themselves like a $9,000 check, or, bought like, the Super Bowl tickets that came in at like $8,000, they weren't getting
Mhm.
reviewed. But then on the other side of things, when you have a really small company and it's like you and four other people, you trust that, the accounting person you have basically implicitly, and you don't even notice when they're skimming like $50, $100 off the top. So I can imagine it impacts everyone.
It does, and you speak to that first case of people skirting a threshold. What's interesting is I think a lot of people think that will allow them to get away with that type of fraud, but the tools exist now, not only within the institution, but within the forensic accounting world, where we're going to see that if there's a lot of activity dipping below the threshold, it's going to pop out, and we're going to go review that. So
You're not
um,
getting anything past David and Adam. Come on.
not yet, I hope. But it's true that the small organizations, yeah, you are absolutely susceptible to that. I think one of the things you can do outside of placing human controls to prevent that is rely on some of the software and technology to prevent those things from occurring. It's important that when you sign up for some sort of ERP or accounting software, that you're making full use of the controls that are in place. If that means that it's keeping an audit trail, if it means it's sending out alerts to different members of the organization about certain types of transactions, that's important. And you're not going to be able to accomplish everything in those small organizations, but there's more that you can do to allow for those things to be in place.
And I'm interested, right? In an era in a time where, right, cost is through the roof on so many different things, especially even from a business perspective. I'm assuming you guys have possibly have seen some situations where folks might have tried to penny pinch and not have these type of services or in place to check their systems and their data, and then when it came to you, it was like, oh, this is a mess that we could have avoided if we were involved from the beginning. Have you guys seen any moments or had any experiences in that regard?
Oh, it happens all the time. I mean, I mean, but to be fair to the organizations, what you have is you can't it's very difficult to define and implement a perfect internal control system. If you
Okay.
did that, it would freeze the organization. It would have so many steps, so many checks and balances, so many different reviews that business couldn't be done. So there has to be a little bit of acceptable risk while still having a framework of control. And so, what we'll see is, um, you know, beyond the control environment, I personally feel that actually, and this may be a hot take, but culture is more important than the control system. And what I mean by that is, if you can have a, a poor control system, but if you have a good culture, one that communicates, one that people have the ability to speak up, that people know what's going on, that can overcome a poor control system versus having a really good control system, but poor culture. That poor culture can poison and they will find people will find out ways to circumvent, to find the gray areas and to get around it. So I personally think that culture is one of the least expensive things to do out there and also the most important.
I was actually going to ask about expense. So I have to imagine that a lot of these cases aren't necessarily things that the business owner knows about ahead of time. Like maybe they hire somebody to come in, take a look, tell me if there's anything going on, versus like, I have a suspicion that this person is doing this, but I'd like you to confirm. Now, you can't always, I mean, maybe you can. I don't know how it works. Like, can you always be monitoring a company? Would that be more expensive to always have an accountant in there? What would be the most cost effective way of getting at this, you know?
I could take this one. One of the things that we can do in this day and age with technology and data analytics is a lot of these dashboards and continuous monitoring tools that will ingest or incorporate new data as it's created and on the spot analyze it for anomalies or issues and pop out alerts if things are going on. So you can invest in these tools that will look at your finance, accounting, and other types of data to make sure that there aren't any issues, anomalies. Sometimes there's just errors in the data, and that will allow you to pop it out and review it quickly. So I think there is a small investment that you can make for these types of tools and capabilities. But I think the idea of bringing in a multiple person team of forensic accountants or auditors to come in and check that everything's running in order in your organization. Yeah, that will be costly, but sometimes being proactive is absolutely the cheaper and more financially advantageous thing you can do to prevent the fraud from ever occurring in the first place.
Is there anything that a company can do to actively hinder their, their fraud prevention methods? Like if that's the best practice, are there things you see that you're like, oh, I wish you guys weren't doing this?
One of the easiest things you can do is just segregation of duties. Just making sure that whoever has custody of the asset, that could be someone who, or doing the bank reconciliation, is different from the person who is doing the approval and recording the bank, the transactions in the accounting system. Now that takes people. When you're segregating different roles, you need to have multiple people. And so that organization that I think we were talking about a couple minutes ago with just 4 or 5 people in it, it's almost, it becomes very difficult for them to do that. However, if you have some small businesses and some medium-sized businesses, and of course the large ones, if you are segregating your roles, so that you don't have control over all aspects of a transaction, you are going to probably stop most fraud from happening.
Yeah, and I'll add to it is training definitely can't be forgotten about. Um, I think a lot of us think it's a pain in the butt every year to have to do our required training. But one great example of how training really helps, you think about how everyone, or I should say most people are in tune with phishing emails and spam coming in by email. It took a lot of training and repetition for people to understand not to click on links that look suspicious. And that's a result of training. And we go through that kind of training every year. The same thing needs to happen with fraud detection and prevention and putting controls in place. The training around that can go a long way to taking preventive measures to prevent that from happening down the road. So by all means, I think creating a culture around training is vitally important.
And I know David mentioned earlier that you guys work with obviously organizations of all different sizes. It's kind of like the same thing the BIA says. We could be a member from a mom and pop shop to a large corporation. Are there some commonalities you guys see and the groupings of the different size businesses though, from like small to medium sized businesses versus some larger corporations? Are there some commonalities you guys see that, hey, if this new client comes on, I know where I need to begin to look for because of, history or things of that nature? Yeah, and that could be, either mistakes or, things that you guys are automatically going to have to implement.
Yeah, I mean, so let's, for instance, if there's a cash intense business,
Okay.
that's something we know that we're going to start our work on the cash.
Okay.
Versus some companies will have, a manufacturing concern may have, scrap issues if they have some very valuable byproducts of their manufacturing process. So there are uh, some characteristics of certain industries. If we're looking in the healthcare, again, you're going to be looking at whether there's coding issues or whether or not they are misbilling items for monetary gain. So there are certainly some overarching first steps, but that doesn't mean that's exactly where the allegations are going. I've had, uh, you know, looked into physicians' practices where someone was stealing the copays every day that was coming in. So not huge dollars, but just when the person paid a copay of $50, they took 25 or the whole 50, and it just added up
Wow.
over time.
You would think that that would be so easily detectable because, like, there'd be bills coming back. Let's say,
Yeah.
like, I paid my $50 copay and somebody took 25 of it. They would be sending me a bill saying, like, hey, look, you only paid half. And then I would be fighting it, like, immediately, like, hey, look, I paid $50.
A
It's
100 people
crazy.
came to the office today and the numbers aren't matching up. I agree with
Yeah.
that, right?
And that's why there was no segregation of duties. So
Uh,
the receptionist took it in and wrote out a list of all the copays, and then she handed it to the financial individual. That financial and the manager then had the authority to alter that list. So no, they altered it. They did the deposit in the bank, and they went there and recorded it in their financial system. So so in that instance, there was no segregation, and they were able to manipulate that. And it was only over time, when they were trying to figure out why they were always significantly under in this area
Uh,
over several years. On a month, it's just a short of a couple $100, and they didn't care. But as that couple hundred, kept going and going and going over time, then it added up.
I'm surprised it took that long. I mean, did you ever see Office Space or Superman 3? There was this like very specific criminal fraud that they tried to implement at this bank that they worked at, where every time a transaction
uh-oh.
occurred where there was like a fraction of a penny, they took that fraction of a penny and put it into an account of theirs. And they figured this is such a small amount of money, no one will ever miss it. And by the end of the weekend, it was like $300,000, and they're freaking out because they're like, "Of course they're gonna miss this. This is why you shouldn't do crime." Just so you know, like if you're our listeners out there and you need some advice coming out of this show, don't do crime. That's the best one I can give you.
And David, you know what? The next time I take one of my little ones to the doctor's office and I pay my copay, I might stand there a little bit longer this time around and say, "Hey, make sure this gets where it's make sure
Yeah.
this gets to where it's supposed it
Get a
gets where it's
receipt.
supposed to."
Get a
There it
receipt.
is.
And a
And a receipt.
receipt, yeah, sometimes. How often do you sometimes not get a receipt at a store, and they go through the motion you don't know whether someone is ringing up a sale or ringing up a refund. You have no idea what's going on behind that, there. And that's why at the end of every day, like when you see it at your local supermarket, someone brings their tray and they go to the manager's office, and they, with their slip of all the activity from the day, and that's a monitoring control in which I started off with $400, I ended with 600, and here's the net of all the transactions that I rang people out, and that's how you watch those things. It's not because you don't trust everyone in the store, but if you see that someone is looking at what you're doing, you are much less likely to commit a fraud.
And I'm assuming it probably gets more challenging for you guys nowadays too, or the industry in general, because there's so many different ways that you can conduct a transaction, right? You can tap your phone, you can use, credit cards, you can
Mhm.
cash when people who are still accepting them. Like, does the variety in those type of things, expand what you guys have to do, or is it just like we know what we're looking for and we're on it either way?
I have one quick challenge, and I'll pass it up to Adam. A lot of these payment apps um, don't have any detail, so we lose all types of description of the data. So if you do a charge on an American Express or a Mastercard, you will see the vendor. You will see
Gotcha.
perhaps you'll say Amazon, and Amazon itself is a challenge because you don't know what was bought with Amazon. It could have been office supplies, or it could have been a TV. You just don't know. And so when you go to these cash apps, you don't even know who the recipient is. A lot of you
Wow.
might just have a phone number, you might have another ID number, and so you lose a lot of the traceability. Adam?
Yeah, that is true. I will say though that I've worked on some cases at the federal level where it becomes a lot easier for them to subpoena for those
Yeah.
records. So to David's point, I will see on a bank statement a Venmo, a PayPal, a Zelle transaction. But when I talk to counsel or a client and say, hey, there's 1,000 transactions or $1 million going through these types of third-party platforms, they will then proceed to get a subpoena, and then I can take all that detail and layer it into a larger analysis. So it doesn't scare us. I think it's just an extra step in the analysis.
Mhm.
The most complicated thing I think would be when money leaves the country or when
Uh,
money goes into crypto. It doesn't make it impossible. It just
wow.
makes it harder. That's all.
Well, and I don't think it would be a BIA show if we didn't talk about like or just mention the idea without getting too political about something like job creation. So I'm thinking about there's certain industries and some people that we meet from different industries, and it's like they're having a hard time hiring, or numbers aren't where they need to be in terms of new bodies, new minds coming in. Forensic accounting, like what are you guys seeing? Are young people still following or coming into the industry? Is it like you slow down, and you guys may not know the depth of it, but just from experience and conversations, are you guys seeing any issues there?
Yeah. So what you'll have seen is in the past or last 10 or 15 years, Adam, I'm not sure if I know the time frame in which many state accounting CPA associations moved on from 120 credit hours to 150 required hours, meaning that people basically had to be a master's in order to get a CPA.
Wow.
And the concept there was to elevate the value of the CPA. At least that's my understanding. I wasn't a decision maker there, but what happened was so many people, we lost a lot in the pipeline. And then from there, the accounting industry is in a, I'll let others say the word crisis, but it's definitely challenging to find new accountants because of that restriction. Education is already, immensely expensive. And then to have to add on a master's and especially, what Adam and I do, notwithstanding us, being a CPA in accounting is not a glamour position. I would, just to be fair, I can look at the industry without bias and understand that it isn't the sexiest of all professions, but it can be very rewarding and there's a lot of areas to do it. But, if you're a sophomore or a freshman deciding what they want to do, it's probably not high on the list.
Are there any
I don't,
alternate routes that could get you there? Like, does it have to be an accounting degree? Like, let's say you're just really good at like detective kind of work.
Mhm.
Is there another way in?
Yeah, I mean, we have people that aren't CPAs in that are forensic accountants, but I would say the vast majority usually are. But you can get there. I mean, just for an example, I was an economics major in college, and then when I decided that this was what I wanted to do, I took classes at night and then studied to get the CPA. So I knew I had to get some degree of an accounting understanding.
And so, I mean, for all listeners out there, David and Adam were experts and professionals to everything CPA and fraud and forensic accounting. And right now, I think we're going to challenge them a little bit because we're going to transition over into our New Jersey-based trivia game show. So if their answers aren't as thorough as they were up until this point, don't hold it against them. They agreed to play, so I think it's going to be fun either way. Then it's all yours.
All right. All right. Make sure you got a paper and some pen or Sharpie ready so you can hold up your answers. I'll throw out a question, give you a few seconds. We're gonna learn a little bit about New Jersey today. So, New Jersey's very first city, the city of Bergen. I'm giving you that clue right there. Like it no longer really exists as its own like official city. Was founded in 1660 and is now a neighborhood of what modern day northern New Jersey city?
Ask me that one more time then.
Sure. New Jersey's very first city, the city of Bergen, was founded in 1660 and is now a neighborhood of what modern day northern New Jersey city?
I was still
Bergen.
Yeah, I'm stuck on that. So I'm in
As a
North
Morris
Jersey.
County individual, I don't know.
I thought you might have had an inside track on this one. You know, Adam, we didn't ask where you were from in Jersey, if you don't mind. Is that okay?
I'm based out of our Philly office, but spend my summers in Ventnor, Margate area in South Jersey. So
Okay, I got
stay below
the
trend.
next two coming up are more on the southern New Jersey side. So
All right.
hopefully you'll be right at home there.
I don't even know. Then I'm just gonna throw something out here.
All right. Everybody got something locked in? Randy and his guess.
Yeah, you know it never works for me. I just wrote Jersey City. I didn't know. No idea. I like Paramus.
No idea. The answer is actually Jersey City. Randy with the point right there. There you go.
You see my level of shock. Then how often does that happen?
Hey, sometimes you just throw out a name, it works out for you. All right, question 2.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get my lunch card, David, if you guys do some background checks over here.
All right. The oldest continuous operating library in New Jersey, which is also the 7th oldest in the country, was chartered in 1757 by British monarch King George II in what southern New Jersey city? So the oldest library in New Jersey that's still running to this day is in a New Jersey city where?
In the South. Can you give us a hint? Can you give us something?
I thought southern New Jersey was a pretty good hint, but
Might as well say Central Jersey.
I'll tell you this. If I give you the county name, it's going to totally give it away. So I can't do that.
I'm going to throw out another wild one, see what happens.
All right. Let's see him.
I've got Vineland.
Trenton and Cape
It's
May.
backwards for me, but I'll go.
Oh,
Cape
no,
May.
I see it just fine. Yeah. Cape May. That's actually not the answer, though. The answer is Burlington, which I think is Randy's neck of the woods. I was expecting you to be like, oh, yeah, I know that. They're always yelling about that when we go to the library. All right, I got one more. The first Miss America was chosen in this southern New Jersey city in 1921. And the hint I'll give you on this one is it's got to be a big enough place that we would hold something like that,
Oh, I think I know this. I don't think I have an idea.
All right, let's see it.
Atlantic City, Vin, if you can see it.
All 3 are correct. Atlantic City, New Jersey. Yeah.
I was in Atlantic City last week for a conference, and I saw all the old. I'm like, let me just take a chance.
Sure.
Maybe you went easy on us, Vinny, on that last one.
Maybe a little bit, because I got worried there that everybody was going to get a 0 out of 0, but
Again,
but Randy, you won. There you go.
Nice. David and Adam, we thank you guys again for being with us. I mean, just before we let you guys go, is there anything that you guys want to, share as a closing word? And I'll remind, obviously, folks about the upcoming webinar in a few, but I'll turn it over to you guys. Is there any closing words you guys like to have?
I'll just repeat what I said earlier. Culture, training, Adam mentioned it. Those are the biggest things you can do to help reduce the risk of fraud. And then secondly, if you do suspect fraud, don't ignore it. Get some experts.
Yeah, and I'll add to that just real quickly that I think people like the idea that these systems or controls that we're going to put in are going to detect fraud. But the number one way that fraud is kind of delivered to us on a platter is from whistleblowers and tips. So if you are aware of something, you're usually the first line of defense to starting that whole process. So definitely take advantage of your voice and speak out.
And I'll just say, don't do crime. Let's do that again. Because even from the point where you're starting to think about it, David and Adam, they're watching you. All right. They're on to you even before you started thinking about it. But guys, let's just say somebody wants to take advantage of your services. How can they get a hold of you?
Sure. Our website as our identification. We're both on LinkedIn, and happy to reach out. Even for a quick conversation, just to help guide. We're happy to help anyone.
Appreciate that. Adam, anything from you? Any contacts or you want to share or direct some folks to?
Same methods. EisnerAmper.com. You can find us on LinkedIn as well if you can't navigate our webpage, but all that information is there, and you can Google us as well. I'm sure we'll be near the top if you do that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Well, look for the accounting paleontologist. That's my sort of
I
moniker.
like it.
You'll find that. I'm the only one.
I know we're wrapping up the show, but I have questions about that. What's an accounting paleontologist?
So accounting, as a young boy, like a lot of boys, I was enthralled with dinosaurs. You can probably see a couple fossils that I have here. That's what I give my kids as easy gifts for me. But when I think about what I do, is I do something very similar to what a paleontologist does. We look through limited records, not the full picture, and what we try to do is build a story. How did they live? What did they eat? Did they live in groups or solo? Adam and I try to figure out who was involved, why did they do it, what did they do it, how much, when. It's the same thing, limited information, and try to tell a story.
Nice.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, everyone out there listening to Planet New Jersey. And thank you for the NJBIA for letting us keep doing this show. So with all those thank yous out of the way, I hope everybody has a great day. See you next time.